If you enjoy this content, please take a moment to rate and review it. Your feedback will greatly impact our ability to reach more people. Thank you.
All right, man. How's it going?
Going well. I'm now a European football fan, or a global football fan.
There you go.
The rest of the world.
Yeah. What's been your favorite match so far?
Probably there was a like shootout. I think was it Morocco?
Yeah.
Someone won in like overtime, then shootout. The shootout thing, I didn't realize they were going to actually, miss. There were saves, hit a post. It was much more drama than I expected, which was great.
Yeah, it's a lot of drama. And then there's also just I think one of the saddest stories is, I think it was Germany, where the player had never, done a penalty kick before. And it's one of those things where you need a little bit of like real world experience, because they're very, very high pressure. And I think at the World Cup, it's like the highest amount of pressure. And the goal seems so big. It's like, but you can still sky it. It's been high drama, man. I think my favorite storylines so far have been Africa getting 8 teams into the round of 32. And then, Capo Verde is not quite in the continent, but, you could throw them in as the 9th team.
Yeah, right.
So the expansion, I think, has been great, because I just don't think anyone thought that they would get that many teams into the knockout rounds. So that was very good. And then I got to go to the match at, they call it Mexico City Stadium, but, Estadio Azteca, which is the home stadium for Club Americas, and 80,000 plus in attendance for Mexico and Ecuador on Tuesday. Yeah. Absolutely insane. I think probably the craziest sporting event I've ever.
Yeah, I was watching that on TV. Mexico was so strong. It wasn't the best kind of game from a competition point of view, but you could tell even on TV that the stadium was rocking, and 80,000 Mexican fans and one fan for the visiting team.
Basically it was. I think when they announced the attendance, and for sure it was full. Okay, I think when they announced the attendance, they said it was something like 80,700, and I was like, there were 700 Ecuadorians in the building. There was definitely a smattering of yellow, but my gosh, just surrounded by green, just unbelievable. So when the FIFA president was talking about the importance of the World Cup, I think a lot of people in the United States just did not understand the scale of it, which is funny because it happens every 4 years. And I feel like every 4 years, everyone gets reminded and then they forget.
Yeah.
But there's something different about it actually happening on American soil. The viewership, the streaming numbers, the viewership numbers for these matches is just
have been huge.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So yes, it is World Cup fever. And I think like a welcome distraction to remind us all that we have more in common than not. And, the world's kind of crazy, and let's just play soccer.
Right. Exactly.
I think this has been both a calm news week, but also a loaded news week. There's like a lot of stories that are probably more developing and building things as opposed to like monumental, but the winds keep shifting. So a lot to cover. You ready?
Yeah, definitely. I'm ready.
All right, let's dig in. Starting with the economy, we continue to be unclear as to whether or not these job numbers are accurate, trustworthy, correct. But we do see that we had a hiring streak that was snapped. Only 57,000 jobs added in June. Unemployment rate edged down to 4.2% as more people left the labor force. So that's a little counterintuitive, but you got to be in the labor force in order to be unemployed. And I think when you look at the month over month numbers in terms of change from a month earlier, you can see that for the last 4 months, it has been a downward trend here. So obviously, when you're looking over the course of many years, you see the trend can go down and swing back up. But generally speaking, it is continuing to trend down. So any thoughts on your end from this?
No, I think that's right. And that's sort of how I feel about the economy. It's been declining for, maybe since March or April. I feel like it's been, maybe not bad, but it's not getting better really. And whether these numbers are exactly right or not, I think the trend feels right. And yeah, people giving up hope and no longer looking for work causes the labor participation rate to, because the denominator goes down. So the unemployment rate went down a little bit. I'm not sure that's a celebration point, really. I mean, people giving up on trying to look for work isn't really a positive sign.
Yeah, this article details that, the labor force being smaller is likely some combination of hardline immigration policies and baby boomer retirements. It's been actually pretty interesting, Vic, to, now that I'm 50, seeing more and more people I know retiring, and it's like kind of that generation that was mentoring me in.
Yeah.
Right. So these are people, 12 to 15 years older than me. They're retiring. I saw an announcement from a buddy of mine who's retiring from BMI. Congrats, Blair, on that. And so it's just interesting to think about people exiting the labor force from retirement. Something I've just never really thought much about until it started to impact my own circles. U.S. Bank chief economist Beth Ann Bovino says there were fewer people in the job market and fewer people getting jobs. That's a bad combination. So to your point, that lower unemployment rate is really a participation rate decline, and so that's definitely not good. Always note every month, industries that gained jobs, healthcare and social assistance the healthcare and social assistance sector drove job gains last month, adding nearly 47,000 jobs. So of the 57,000 jobs added, 47,000 were in healthcare and social assistance.
Which is good for our industry, but also, not sustainable.
No, certainly not. And also, we're going to talk about policy here in a little bit. We know that there's going to be a reckoning coming next year with many of the results of HR1. Moving to the next story is about one company, but it kind of reflects a broader trend that people have been talking about, the AI bubble. This story is from Bloomberg. Meta is planning a cloud business to sell AI computing power. So this is, I think, notable on a couple of different fronts. One, Meta was fast out of the gate as one of the really big CapEx spenders as a hyperscaler. However, Meta has never had a B2B cloud business. They are not in the same class as Amazon, Microsoft, Google, or Oracle. As a cloud provider. They've always used their cloud for their own platforms. And now they are talking about selling this excess capacity to others. So obviously we saw Elon move with that playbook with SpaceX selling Colossus to Anthropic. And here Meta kind of admitting defeat in the frontier game, and instead taking their CapEx investment and turning it into a revenue line, which popped the stock. So any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think your interpretation is my interpretation. I think they have failed largely to have a viable AI strategy, except for using it to power their internal, advertising business, which of course they've been good at forever, selling us stuff that I don't know I want until I see it on Instagram. But yeah, they have not been able to create their own model or really grow that in any way that would use a lot of capacity. So I think that's right, throwing in the towel and just going to monetize this. There's plenty of demand with other folks. So I think it'll work, but it's not a good sign for the overall strategy.
Yeah, but I think you combine that with the fact that OpenAI is delaying their IPO, and some of that has to do with some of the leaked financials, and we know that they're burning cash at a huge rate. They were going to be a really big CapEx spender. There are rumors now they're going to pull back on some of those CapEx commitments that they made, some of those compute demand commitments that they made. Everybody, it seems, in the frontier model world has been buying business, buying market share, and is generally speaking pretty unprofitable. And, we see that in a lot of the making the models dumber or limiting access, even on the quote unquote max plans. I ran into it today. I was generating the script for the show today, and I didn't think I'd run out of sonnet, but apparently on my max plan I had, and so I had to dumb down to haiku, right? So I think this business model is going to be beleaguered in many different ways, and I think a lot of these hyperscalers who have good cash reserves and good operating businesses outside of the frontier model space are realizing continuing to chase winning in this space, maybe chasing a path to zero. And so why not at least sell picks at the gold rush?
I think that's right. And unless you are OpenAI, Anthropic, or maybe Google, the race is over, right? Like Meta's not in that race anymore. So them admitting that and monetizing the asset that they built, which is a significant, and we've talked about the size before, it's about as big as the whole city of New York City. There's a lot of value in that, monetizing it for other folks.
All right, moving to the VC landscape. This is a story from Crunchbase that came out today. Global startup investment hit a record $510 billion in the first half of 2026 as the AI boom accelerates funding and exits. If there is an AI bubble happening, we know who's perpetuating it, and it's the VC industry and the LPs underneath it. There's a chart here that shows the global venture dollar volume through the first half of 2026 across different quarters, and wow. This first half has totally blown out any other half of the 2020s. Really not even close. And you have to say it's all about AI. But what you note when you look at it is the lion's share of it is late stage. Early stage has ticked up a little bit, but actually the first half of 2026 is not a larger early stage half than the second half of 2021. Man, that late stage bubble is huge. And it continues this trend, Vic, that we've been talking about the consolidation happening at the largest of these firms and their ability to sort of play up the stack. And really, you got to think about it. This is even eating into the return profile for private equity, I would think. When these funds are in the billions of dollars and they're consolidating the equity holdings all the way through to IPO, and it doesn't get to external funders, in the typical graduation model that we've been used to.
I agree completely. And if you go down further, there are stats about seed. I think seed and angel are up, but the number of deals is down pretty dramatically. So similar, it sort of rhymes with what you're saying, that the number of deals is smaller, but each deal is much larger in size, which fits with what I'm seeing out there as well.
Yeah, and I think the simplest math would be less deals being done because there are less funds writing checks, but larger checks being written because the funds that have money have more money. We're in a change in the industry, and it even though there is an AI bubble, this part of it feels pretty durable to me. So something to continue to keep an eye on. All right, BMS-backed Beeline putting worker bee mentality into effect with $126 million Series A extension. That's a heck of a Series A extension. 2 months after coming out of stealth with $300 million and 5 autoimmune programs from Bristol Myers Squibb, Beeline Medicines has flown an extra $126.3 million back to his hive, says Fierce Biotech. This Series A extension comes from the existing backers as Bain Capital and the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board and BMS themselves. So I think we're continuing to see trends that biotech is back.
I agree with that, definitely. The Series A extension with the same investors coming in, I don't think there was a new investor. That's a funny fact pattern. I mean, I don't have any inside information, but it makes me think that they've learned something. Either the market is bigger or they need more capital or something changed in the last few months to make them think, gosh, we should provide more capital here.
Yeah, agree.
It hasn't been that long.
No, it hasn't. Their focus is lupus, definitely a condition that needs, new therapies to improve the outcome for patients everywhere. Moving into policy. This is a good policy week. Nothing of particular interest, even though it was the week where we wrapped up the Supreme Court's docket for the year. But I think there are some pretty important things happening on the policy landscape. So this first one's from the Wall Street Journal. The headline is the latest senior citizen special is here, cheap weight loss drugs. We've been talking about Medicare members being able to have access to GLP-1s. And now we have some more details starting July 1st, which was yesterday, as of the date of recording. Certain Medicare members can get weight loss drug coverage for the first time at an out-of-pocket cost of $50 a month. So now we're starting to get a sense of what kind of negotiation the government has been able to make with these GLP-1 companies.
There's going to be a lot of demand for it. Down in the article a little bit further, it suggests there's going to be mostly pre-auth requirements. So it might be delayed, but I think it's going to be hard to not allow seniors that would like to lose weight to get on it. So I think there's going to be huge adoption, and it will spend a lot of money in the next couple of years. Hopefully that will benefit our population's health, and the country Medicare will save money over time. But I think it's going to be a big outlay.
Yeah, agree. More 340B news. CMS targets 340B, site neutral pay in 2027 outpatient rule. Becker's hospital review outlines 9 things to know. I'll go ahead and read out the list. The 340B drug payments would be slashed to an average sales price minus 33.4%. That's down from the current average sales price plus 6%. 2, the 340B remedy clawback would accelerate. So they want to accelerate the recovery of the $7.8 billion in extra non-drug payments hospitals received under the prior 340B policy from 2018 to 2022. Site neutral payment would expand to imaging. That's the third one. 4th, hospitals and ASCs would get a 2.4% pay bump. So that's kind of part 2 of site neutral payments. The inpatient only list keeps shrinking. More site neutral work. New prior authorization would hit botulinum toxin injections. So a 42.8% jump in claim volume from 2017 to 2024 with no clear clinical explanation. CMS is proposing to require prior auth for 8 additional toxin injection codes in the hospital outpatient setting, projecting more than $17 million in net annual savings. Number 7, a price transparency request for information signals, more requirements ahead. And then a series of other provisions that they've talked about. Finally, noticing that hospital groups slammed the rule within hours of its release. No duh. The AHA called the package a continued assault on the 340B drug pricing program and said the proposed 33.4% cut will make drugs less affordable for vulnerable patients already facing higher premiums, coverage losses, and rising drug prices. I mean, Vic, it just seems like the assault, I think, is fair when you think about, how consistent the policies that impair hospital viability have been. I mean, HR1 was a lot, and we haven't even seen it really, be implemented. But in the meantime, there are lots of other core attacks on whether right or not, the ways in which these hospitals have been, driving profitability. So I would love to say that innovation is the way and using more technology. I mean, I would love to, but my sense is that this is going to be an incredibly difficult year, 2027, to be a hospital operator.
No, I mean, we've talked about it over the last several weeks, but process by which the CMS said hospitals are valuable and we need to provide higher payments for all of these things rhyme together. Like, we need to figure out a way to get them more money through the drug channel. We need to allow them to charge more for x-rays and MRIs, even though it's the same machine being used. And there's certain things that have to be done inpatient only. All of those pieces, when you look at them individually, they don't really make sense, right? Like, if I'm going to go get an MRI, in a suburb versus in a metro hospital, it's the same process, it's the same machine. Why do I have to pay more? As I have to pay more. All these rules have sort of accumulated over the past 40 years to support health systems in doing the work that's not reimbursed as well in maybe uncompensated care or some of the specialty trauma and other kind of things that we don't do anywhere else. We need to somehow right size those payments. We cut these, but I think right now we're just cutting to preserve the spend, which we need to cut the spending as much as we can, but it's going to put a lot of pressure on health systems.
Yeah, and it feels to me like there's a willingness to see it break. I mean, I think that's the only thing I can surmise is that the sense seems to be that the status quo is so unacceptable that if it needs to break, let it break. And then, maybe then we'll get some movement because we have not been able to get movement in many years. So that I can't look at the coordinated barrage of policies that have been laid out in front of health systems over the course of the last year. It's funny, we're right around the anniversary of HR1, aren't we? Because it happened around the 4th of July last year. I mean, over the course of the last year, this has just been, I don't know. I mean, there's just going to be a tremendous number of cuts. And I can't help but look at the juxtaposition of the fact that literally this industry is holding up the job numbers, almost entirely holding up the job numbers. So something has changed in the political calculus where it's not about jobs, and it's totally acceptable to continue to put the screws to the industry. So,
I mean, my opinion, but I didn't bring research around this, but I think the policymakers, mostly led by the Republican side, I think they have a belief that if they bring price transparency and bring sort of free market powers into this market, it will right size and still deliver great care. And in general, I'm a free market guy, but I'm not sure that it can be that smooth. I think it's going to be kind of bumpy. And as you say, it'll break. I think there'll be pieces around the country that, the free market does not solve for.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to have to figure out how to deal with that at the time.
Yeah, we're aligned. I agree. Continuing on. Next story here is about states suing the Trump administration over the Medicaid work requirements rule. 26 states are seeking to overturn some of the regulation released by the CMS this month that outlined Medicaid work requirements. This is Healthcare Dive. So, swift responses to some of these policies. Here's kind of the notes on it from Healthcare Dive. 26 states have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration challenging Medicaid work requirements, arguing several provisions in regulation promulgated by the CMS are unlawful and risk harming enrollees in the safety net insurance program. Some of these were outlined in the Big Beautiful Bill last year, and they're basically saying in this suit that the regulation differs significantly from the provisions outlined in the Big Beautiful Bill. And the states also allege that the CMS narrowed the definition of medically frail in the interim final rule, making it harder for sick people to qualify for exemptions. And the lawsuit seeks to vacate some of the provisions in the interim final rule. I just want to say one of the trends I've been seeing, as you know, I've been doing keynotes largely across the eastern part of the United States. With hospital associations as well as with community health organizations. And one of the things that, my keynote, obviously, as an investor, business person, one of the things I'm trying to communicate is the financial rationale for why some of these regulations are coming down the way they are. And, I'll present the debt, I'll present affordability issues. I'll present all these things, and without pointing the blame at the at the provider ecosystem, because I don't think any one segment of our industry or even our country, takes all the blame for healthcare affordability, right? I mean, I think it's a broader
it's a combination over years.
100%. It's a broader systemic thing, and I think the more you dig into the whole thing, you realize that it's a really difficult ball of yarn to try to untangle. However, I will say that the at least one person every time that I do my talk, like whether it's in Q&A or it's afterwards, like, in the hallways or something, there's always one person who will say that they're disappointed that my talk was so much about money and didn't talk about the people, right? And I totally understand that, but it is the thing that makes me feel like all sides are a little bit talking past each other, right? Because there absolutely are real consequences to the most vulnerable of us that are going to be the fallout from these policies and these regulations that are rolling out. I don't know how you can have a straight face and be intellectually honest and say that that's not true, right? And at the same time, when you look at the systemic impact of healthcare's inefficiency over the course of decades and what that has done, how it has contributed as entitlements on the government's P&L and balance sheet, how it has contributed to the fiscal situation the country finds itself in, that also can't be denied if you're intellectually honest, right? And so I think we're just in a quagmire where there's simply not going to be a way to get out of this that does not have pain. And I don't mean to say this about, human souls, but there will be collateral damage in the workout of this, which is, I think, the hardest thing to admit. It's really hard to admit that there's going to be collateral damage. There's going to be lives, and again, the most vulnerable lives, as we try to work this situation out.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I wrote an entire book on this because I got I think scared is the right word, pretty scared about, there's sort of two things happening at once. Our capabilities with AI and Web3 and the biotech industry, our ability to treat disease and help people live healthier, more productive lives is growing exponentially, significantly, 10, 20, maybe 100x over the next several years. And yet we're going to have to figure out a way to allocate some of these resources to all the people, so health and wellness, preventative, immunizations, is basic things that I think everyone on both sides of the aisle would say we just need to give to the people. But then there's going to be some things that are gated because they're too expensive. And how do we wrestle with that? How do we figure that out? That's a really sticky, difficult issue because healthcare is this sort of 50%. It is a social good. It's a thing that we do to take care of all of us. And 50%, it has to be functional from a business, financial point of view, because it's 20% of the economy and we can't afford not to be. And when all of these things were set up 50 years ago, we didn't really have much expense in chronic disease. It was acute care. You had an accident or something, or maybe a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
But that chronic disease just hadn't manifest yet in the 50s, 60s, 70s. We weren't healthy enough as a population. And so we have to wrestle with this as a society. And I don't think we're not in a place where our politicians can talk about anything in a way that's nuanced at all. So it's really difficult, I think. So that tension that you're hearing in the hallways, I think, is the tension that we're going to have to all struggle with.
Yeah, try our best to have empathy for both challenges, because I think that empathy will produce the most thoughtful path forward, as opposed to this like my way or the highway thing, because that's just going to swing back and forth based on which political party happens to be in control, right? I think we don't. I think the workout of this is going to have to extend beyond any 2 or 4 year political cycle, right? I mean, this is going to need a sustained effort of thoughtfulness. So,
yeah, and just take the work requirement. In general, I agree with that. If a poor person is not working at all, I think they should try to find something to do for their own self-worth and to sort of build themselves up. And yet that is easy for me to say, in Nashville, where I drove my car into the office and have all these advantages. So it's when you get down to the human level, it's hard. And then sometimes they miss, maybe they're living with someone else now. So then when the mailing comes to confirm that they're working, they miss the letter. So people fall through the cracks like that, and there's real repercussions to the humans around that. Even though maybe the thesis makes sense, the implementation is really hard.
Agree. All right, moving on to the payers. Evernorth invests $100 million for AI specialty pharmacy program. Evernorth is investing through 2028 in Pharmacy Forward, an AI-powered program aimed at improving specialty pharmacy operations and patient care. I haven't really heard much about Evernorth in a while, so I think that was one of the reasons I was happy to pull this story in. I'm glad, I think Cigna was really focused on tightening up the investment side of the house. But here we're seeing them making a meaningful investment. It's a multi-year investment, so you need to kind of take that $100 million and think about how it is amortized over the course of the next 2.5 years. Hey, seeing them make a dedicated tech investment in AI that's going to improve pharmacy operations and patient care is obviously a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think pharmacy is such a hot issue now with all the pre-auth, it's into 340B, all those things. and they're coming at it from I think from a more constructive way. There's 4 things they want to really focus on: care enablement, sort of, making sure that the clinicians, understand what the choices are, experience accelerators. So, can we get more patients to get personalized care, get the drugs they need, drug readiness, and then fulfillment network. Those are all good things to add in and strengthen. And I think it'll be better overall. Save money, which Evernorth wants to do, but also I think it'll be better care.
Agreed. Okay, moving on to health systems. Care is leaving the hospital faster than demographics suggest. This is from Becker's. The aging, higher acuity population is colliding with contracting insurance coverage, care redesign, new therapies, and competition from disruptors. And the net effect is care leaving the hospital faster than raw population math alone would indicate. So this continues with this trend of not just site neutrality, but also patient choice. It says here, the first sentence, outpatient volumes are projected to grow 20% over the next decade, while inpatient discharges rise just 7%, according to Vizian's 2026 Impact of Change forecast from SG2. So this continues to look like the deconstruction of the hospital as the center of care. I wouldn't say the deconstruction of the health system, because I think health systems are just that, they're systems, right? And they're often made up of ASCs and clinics and specialty pharmacists and all these kinds of things. But the hospital specifically, I think that there's continuing to be a steady movement away from it as the core center of care. And many would argue for the good.
And it's hard to, these are physical buildings and medical equipment, and that is hard to move. And so I think that the people a lot of the people would rather go to a facility, an office clinic or a diagnostic and surgery center near their house than go into the health system. And now the policy, as we just talked about, is more normalizing that, where it's the same payment across both often. And so that's going to be really difficult. I think these trends are right. We've already been investing. You and I have already been investing along a lot of these same things, where home health is growing the fastest, office and clinic growing much faster than the hospital, outpatient, all the things you just said. And not surprising, but it's hard for health systems to adjust. They have significant assets in their hospital core. Yes, they're IDN, integrated delivery network, but a lot of the physical fixed assets are in the hospital that they need to try to figure out what to do with.
Right. This story, are big health systems done switching EHRs? Only 2 large health systems, those with more than 10 hospitals, made an enterprise-wide EHR purchase decision in 2025, according to Class Research. Overall, the number of hospitals affected by a new EHR decision fell 40% compared with 2024 and nearly 50% compared with 2023. With many big health systems either entrenched with Epic or awaiting further development of Oracle Health's AI-powered platform, our major EHR transitions becoming a thing of the past. So I think there are 2 aspects of this story from Becker's Health IT that I wanted to talk with you about, Vic. One is the fact that Epic is just seemingly impervious to competition. Now, I do appreciate the sentence here about awaiting further development of Oracle Health's AI-powered platform, and we know that there are certain systems like Ascension, for example, that are deeply partnering with Oracle on sort of the next generation of that technology. But, Oracle had to acquire Cerner and, they basically had to, as I understand it, do a major rewrite of the technology. And so all of that stops forward progress in terms of like market capture. So Epic didn't have to deal with any of that and made a lot of progress. And, for all the things we're seeing out here around information blocking and transparency and interoperability, it doesn't seem that any of that is impairing Epic's ability to, really be unchallenged as the key EHR player. So that's kind of one story. The second story is, I think, a bit of a deprioritization of EHR, right? If in fact we are able to get interoperability and an end to data blocking, and we truly can get into these systems of record, the next generation of technology should be layered on top of it, alongside it. And, I think many of the forward thinking, hospital leaders that I've talked to are saying the EHR is critical but insufficient for the next model of care that they're looking for. And so they wouldn't be spending a lot of time focusing on switching an EHR because that's not where they're necessarily looking to innovate. Like if it's good enough, they might say, fine, it's good enough. Make sure I can innovate on top of it or alongside it. And I'm going to switch my spending to much more of an AI focus. So those two things seem to be at play here. The EHR market really being dominated by Epic, but at the same time becoming more of a commodity and not something that people are really thinking about as much, and the big investments going into other forms of technology. What do you think about that?
Epic is gaining market share, and they already have significant market share. That's not something that I'm excited about. I'm hopeful that it becomes, I mean, sort of like the mainframes are on Wall Street, right? Like they're never going to go away. They're infrastructure, but then you've built trading systems and other much more user-friendly and innovative systems on top of that sort of plug into the mainframe systems. It's where most of the work is done and where all the value is. And EHRs are never going to disappear because it's all of the billing records. But can we build a system on top of that and have almost a facade or somewhere where the work is done, where really care decisions are made, that is honestly, more useful for the physicians and easier for patients to access their data? That would be great. I think that part of the fight over data portability is can we get to that where it's an open market and people can innovate on that space? I'm hopeful about that. I don't know. We'll see.
Look, it's my hope. I don't think a one company, model is best for the industry, and certainly not based on the track record. And look, I mean, I think it's what it's going to end up doing, right? Is it's just going to detract a lot of investment in this area, which is the opposite of what really needs to happen. There needs to be more investment happening in innovation to support the seemingly necessary transition that hospitals are going to have to go through. And the idea that is only going to exist on the roadmap of Epic is, I don't think it's, I don't know.
That's not viable. I don't think there's possibility that you can have a healthy market with only one vendor. That's just not realistic. So one of the things that the Trump administration is doing that I think is good is supporting these open standards and really pushing Epic and others to be open and sharing data, which is sort of the necessary first step to allow that more healthy ecosystem sort of on top of the EHRs.
Yeah. Okay, pharma. FDA approves the first gene therapy for children with sickle cell disease. So we've seen some miracle cases where younger people have been cured with sickle cell disease. But now we're going below 12 years old for children as young as 2, which is just absolutely remarkable. I mean, you think about like how much suffering a young child will be spared, if they're able to be saved at the age of 2 from this disease. So this for me has just been an incredible win for science. I know people who have lost people in their family to sickle cell disease. I know people. I have people close to me who live with it, and just the idea that we have a flat out cure for it is just absolutely remarkable, and I think is a real indication of the kinds of diseases we're going to be able to cure in the future, and the idea that the FDA has expanded approval, saying it's not only effective but it is safe for a 2-year-old is just remarkable. Just remarkable.
Yeah, I agree. This was the first, really kind of gene therapy treatment that cure that I saw in adults, and it's great to see it coming to basically people of all ages. 2 is pretty young, and the FDA granted this supplemental approval in 53 days. So I also like that they're moving quickly. So yeah, it's a good story.
Takeda and Insilico strike an AI drug discovery deal worth up to $600 million. Takeda will be granted exclusive worldwide rights to develop, manufacture, and commercialize the new drugs. And so, Vic, this is at least the second of these kind of deals that we've seen. We've seen Lilly execute this kind of deal and double down, demonstrating that it's got real effectiveness. But here we see Takeda doing the same thing, right? And they're going to use their proprietary pharma.ai platform to advance drug candidates across several therapeutic areas. So clearly, I think we're going to look up and we will see every major pharmaceutical commercialization company will have its own proprietary partnership with an AI platform dedicated to drug discovery.
Yes, and I'm excited about it. I mean, there'll be ideas that don't work when you put into the human body into clinical trials, but we're going to have a lot new molecules, a lot new treatments, a lot of new ideas coming from sort of different points of view, because AI is going to take in a huge amount of opportunity. I think it's going to be incredible. So, and it's healthy that, Lilly will have some competition from Japan. And I agree, every big pharma company or biotech company will be doing some version of this. I think that's healthy. It's good to keep Lilly, they'll be great, but they need the competition to keep getting stronger.
Yeah. And they're always first on this stuff too. So,
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't think there's any worry about their ability to continue to be the lead dog. Orca Bio Cell Therapy gets landmark FDA nod for new kind of living medicine. An FDA approval of Orca Bio's Treg makes it the first cell therapy based on regulatory T cells, or Tregs. Clinical trial results showed reduced risk of graft-versus-host disease, a common complication of the allogenic stem cell transplants that are a standard treatment for certain blood cancers. So, I guess we're advancing beyond CAR T into Tregs.
Yeah, that's right. They're taking that core technology and now delivering a similar thing for different pathways, different use cases. This is another, single treatment. So I don't know if you can call it a cure like you would for sickle cell, but it's a lot more convenient than many cancer treatments, and lots of promise. I mean, I thought CAR T was going to take off much faster than it did. It's hard to get, out of the lab bench into implementation, just with how the whole supply chain works and everything. But good to see it get approved, and I want to see more of these.
Yeah, I feel like CAR T was one of the casualties of the biotech funding, fallout, Vic, and there started to be the build out of the different plants around the country that were going to support the infrastructure for that supply chain. It's a cold chain, right? It's like you're transporting living things, around. And they're personalized, right? So it was never a simple thing to do.
Each patient needs their own sample shipped to the plant and then shipped back. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was never going to be a simple thing to do, but I think when the capital really collapsed, it slowed that down. So let's hope that while there's all this hyperscaler overindulgence in data centers, that we can take even a fraction of that and finally build out the infrastructure needed for the supply chain for this next generation of therapies. I mean, I think it will revolutionize the way we're able to deal with some of these fatal diseases. Okay, Health and Us. This is a great story. So I think we need to talk about it, because having to cover challenging things. But the Wall Street Journal here this morning announced that the U.S. death rate falls to its lowest point on record. The CDC says continued drop in drug overdose deaths contributed to low rate, while influenza and pneumonia now rank among the top 10 causes of death. So I think the focus that has been able to have been put on overdoses and really minimizing that, that just death of despair has been so promising, because I think when we started the Health Further podcast, I told you about the trip that I took with the Aspen Fellowship, into neighborhoods in Philadelphia, in the Kensington area, and you get a whole other level of appreciation for the despair that it's not so much the people who are living through it, because obviously that is a terrible way to live. But it is impossible to ignore the fact that when you see these people, it's like, that is somebody's child, that is somebody's sibling, that might be somebody's parent, you know what I mean? And to just know that we have been meaningfully making an impact in lowering these overdoses, to me, has to be correlated with a decrease in the usage. I really hope so. And that's very, very promising. Now, you always have to sort of focus on the weakest link, and I think it's important to point out that influenza and pneumonia moved up. 56,511 deaths in 2025 compared to 48,000 in 2024. And it's the first time that influenza has cracked the top 10 since 2020. And, I had a really weird strain of the flu in January, and I got a flu shot. So, that was a pretty frustrating thing. And it makes me wonder whether or not there was something around the flu shot's efficacy, and so it's always kind of hit or miss whether or not it hits the target. So I wonder how much that contributed to it, and then I wonder how much the decline in vaccination rates, which is something that one of the professors at Johns Hopkins University in this article is mentioning. So it seems like a confluence of factors have led to that, but clearly we want to work on making sure that 2026. We have more success against the flu than we did in 2025.
I agree completely. The lowest death rate ever is a great story. I mean, and the fact that it's dramatic reductions continuing in overdose sort of amelioration is great. Anytime you have that, there's going to be something else there's always a top 10 cause of death, right? So if you have some things fall out of the top 10 cause of death, something else is going to come in. And then we'll focus on that. But I think it was a largely very positive story.
Agree. Let's move to Web3. Have some fun. On Decrypt, the Morning Minute, major new stablecoin launch shakes incumbents. So the incumbents they're referring to here, USDC, which is Circle, which was launched out of Coinbase, and then USDT, which is Tether, which is the 800-pound gorilla globally, but not really the strong player here domestically in the United States. So OpenUSD is a new stablecoin, and it's consortium based. There is a CEO, but it's really sort of this conglomeration of a bunch of different, major companies, to include Visa, MasterCard, and Google. But there are many, many more. I think Stripe is in this thing, BlackRock, BNY, Shopify, DoorDash. So, big group of businesses. I think it's 140 businesses have signed on. Whenever the number is that big, you kind of think, to some degree, nobody wanted to be left out. But I think the question is really who's the lead dog that's instigating this thing, right? Who was able to, get this thing done? So they say Open Standard is a new company led by Zach Abrams, and OpenUSD is the stable coin that they'll be using, and they'll be going live later this year. But I would say, look, they have it, while it is a direct shot at Circle and Tether, they definitely have a nice conglomeration of people that are going to work together on this. I think there's a lot of stickiness that the incumbents have here. And to me, it's not so much about whether or not OpenUSD, overthrows them. To me, it's more the confirmation of the success of the Genius Act and of stablecoins as the first true use case, real world use case of cryptocurrency that all of traditional finance is embracing and committing to use. So that's to me the story here is just this really kind of closes the question out of what has been the winning use case of crypto. It's the stablecoin.
No question. This I don't know if this new stablecoin is going to be the dominant one or Tether or Circle will be. I'm not sure that matters. To me, this story signals that it's going to be huge adoption in the next 18 months, so that by the end of 27, I think you're going to see a lot of stable coins being used for payments, being used for all kinds of things that are just more convenient than wiring dollars around. It doesn't really matter how this competition bears out. I think this entry is going to just kind of catalyze that whole market adoption process, because it's not going to be, do you want to do stablecoin or not? It's going to be much more a question of which one should we pick of these three now, because the market's moving.
Exactly. All right. From genius to clarity, Ondo tokenizes BlackRock's IVV ETF and Micron stock under a U.S. custodial model. So again, out in front of the Clarity Act, but we continue to see big moves being made with major financial players around market structure, around taking securities, equities, tokenizing them, and launching those tokenized versions for distribution in compliance with the Security and Exchange Commission. So I think, again, we just want to track this drumbeat, because the more that tokenization takes hold with these major players, you know that these major players would not do anything that would send them afoul of the regulatory bodies, the SEC or the CFTC or the FDIC. And I think this all just further cements the fact that we are moving to a world where securities are going to live on the blockchain.
No question. To me, this is the second use case, right? Like, we're going to tokenize at first securities, meaning stocks, bonds, other assets, and then there'll be other, not so liquid assets, real estate or other things that get tokenized. I think that's going to be the next use case that a year from now, everyone's kind of rushing in. BlackRock being able to buy and sell their S&P 500 ETF 24/7 all the time, and yet still have all those shareholder rights of being able to vote my shares, get dividends, all that stuff is new. And it's, this is a US based company, they're custodied in the US. And I think that's meaningful.
Into AI, let's start with Becker's Health IT, health tech's next big question. So this is a really an opinion piece, maybe an analysis piece about the fact that healthcare has been one of the biggest buyers of AI. There's been a need for it. There's been a need to find ways to cut costs. There's been a need to find ways to make the lives of the workforce better. Doctors and nurses certainly, and so I would actually give the healthcare industry some pretty strong marks in terms of, where they were back in 2023 when ChatGPT came out. And I remember the first time I showed a bunch of C-levels ChatGPT for the first time to today, the amount of AI being deployed into health systems and payers. And we've already talked about in pharma all across, the country. I would give high marks for that. And now we're maturing and we're moving to the next phase, right? Where I think many businesses are talking about getting out of token maxing and, spend as many tokens as you can. I think in the healthcare world, it's more about, okay, we've tried these things. We know that they work, but how do we now make them work in a sustainable, structured, operational way? And I think that this article does a good job of reflecting that shift, which I think is really, really important for investors like us and the portfolio companies that we try to advise, making sure they understand that the market is maturing and their expectations of what an AI provider needs to bring in the door with them are starting to mature along with that.
Yeah, no question. The main thrust is that we've done, as an industry, we've done lots of pilots or fairly small scale, really tests. Like, is this going to be useful or not? And maybe you have a physician group with 15 physicians. They all tried different things just to test it out. And now we need to move from sort of these learning experiments to how can we bring it across the whole system? How can we scale it up? And there's a lot of human kind of organizational change, a lot of culture change, a lot of deciding on, okay, which system do all those doctors agree on that is not purely an AI performance question. I think the AI performance question has been answered. It is very valuable, but now how can we use it in our operations so that we get the result we want? That's complex because the systems are big, the culture's been entrenched for a long time, and it's harder to bring it system-wide.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, I've noticed the maturity curve accelerate rapidly. Look, I mean, these operators are running highly complex organizations, right? So for you to think that they are not sophisticated enough when they put their attention to it, to think about how to deploy really empowering technology, they absolutely can do it. And quite frankly, this industry has been beleaguered with subpar technology for a very, very long time. So I think it's a new dawn for that capability. I think this ties well with the question about, is the EHR war over, right? Because I think as they talk about system-wide rollouts, that to me sounds like code for the AI that the EHR offers, right? Because that's a very easy thing to deploy, right? Who do they want to be charged with the change management of taking something from a pilot to a system-wide solution? Do they want to own that responsibility? Do they want to own that responsibility with a small company? Or do they want to rely on their core multi-million-dollar deal, multi-year strategic partner that is their embedded EHR, right? And I think that I think for many of these hospitals, the answer is going to be their EHR partner.
I think that is going to be a popular answer. I'm not sure that Epic is going to have the best solutions, but they're quickly, running at AI too. So they'll have good solutions. And then agreement on how do you sort of introduce it across the system is it's a change management question. It's not really a tech question. So whether you use Epic solution or Open Evidence or OpenAI or Anthropic, or you put together your own system with open source, any of those things, we have the technical capabilities today to do that. But it's really a question of like, how does the leadership team want to roll it out, and how do they work through all of that training and harmonization? Well, they're also delivering the care they're delivering every day. That sort of enterprise work is hard and really important. And so that's what the point of the story is. I think it's over the next year, we're going to see many groups try to scale things up, and there'll be successes and not successes.
Yep. So we talked about Takeda, we talked about Lilly. Now it's time to talk about Anthropic. Anthropic launches Claude Science to court pharma ahead of the IPO. And this is such a core question, right? Should you use the specialized player, or is the general purpose LLM going to be everything you need anyway? So Anthropic unveiled Claude Science, an AI workbench designed to run, not just assist with pharma research. The company is seeking to build out its customer base in the pharma sector as it deepens its healthcare push ahead of a widely anticipated IPO. So of course, why would you not go into healthcare if you are Claude when it equals 20% of the GDP? And when you're seeing, exclusive deals being run with some of the biggest ones, okay, maybe Anthropic is not going to be the right partner for Lilly or for Takeda because they want to have something that's totally proprietary. But there are many, 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 many other pharma companies out here, much smaller ones, emerging ones, and Claude could be an incredible partner for them. And, this to me continues to prove that one thing Anthropic is exceptionally good at is picking the right applications for a frontier model. I don't think that they were always better than OpenAI. I think OpenAI had better models in the beginning, but it was Anthropic's decision to focus on coding that really pulled them way out in front. And to me, this is another clear example of focusing on the right problems to solve with a frontier model.
I agree with that, and I think that biotech, and particularly DNA and RNA, has a lot of similarities to code. I think that if the models can get really good at that, there's a lot of things kind of up the stack from DNA and RNA that you can be really powerful. In the same way that Claude Code got really good at code, but then it can do Excel and PowerPoint kind of easily because it's all code at the end of the day. It can do Leo contracts, can do lots of things. I think there's a similar analogy in biotech and pharma around sort of getting to the protein folding in the DNA, and it also is going to really help their IPO. It's a good news item for that. So I think all of the above. They're really good at marketing, and they're really good at sort of understanding kind of what are the primitives or what are the building blocks that are going to really give them an advantage 2 years from now in a big market like healthcare.
Yeah, and I think it probably is a really good idea to pivot from general purpose coding to highly regulated industries where there's a lot of liability in who you work with for Anthropic. because our next story talks about something that is, threatening to eat away at the very core of the viability of the frontier model at all as a viable business model, given the capex requirements. Story from the Wall Street Journal: China resets the AI race, and this is not the first time they did this, right? I mean, we remember when DeepSeek came out, and it was the beginning of the realization that all of the great AI models were not going to come out of these like hugely funded U.S. labs. That some of these underfunded, undersupplied AI labs in China were going to release open source models. But last week, again, there was another big moment with the release of GLM 5.2, which comes from a Chinese lab. Right after Fable 5 was held up and under review because of Amazon tipping off the government, hey, this thing might actually cause a bunch of problems. Right after that, GLM 5.2 was released, and all over X, people were saying this thing is Fable. It's an open weight Fable. Okay, maybe it's not as good in this, but it's better in this. And people had the benchmarks to prove it. It was equally as competent, effectively in coding, and it's free. You can today go grab it off the web, and if you can host it, you can run it. Right. And not have to pay Anthropic tokens and not have to get, it pulled away from you when you say, check my code. Right. Where it says, sorry, you're now deprioritized in this. So this is really going to introduce a policy conundrum as it pertains to open source technology that I don't think we've ever experienced in the United States. I don't think Linux was ever truly going to be threatened with being outlawed as a technology that you could use as a United States citizen. But I'm getting more and more concerned that so much of the U.S. economy is based on these AI model companies right now, and everything underneath them, the hyperscalers, Meta trying to sell their excess capacity to them, on and on and on. I'm really concerned that the threat that open source presents to these models is going to spur some policy against open source, and maybe even particularly against open source coming out of China that we've never experienced before. And it's scary, but I've never seen the odds of it happening be higher.
I agree with that, and I hope that's wrong. The Trump administration stopping the release of Fable because it could be jailbroken. Is that how you say the past tense?
Yes.
Jailbroken? That's ridiculous. I mean, every model can be jailbreaked. It's not. They're not going to be able to stop that. And as you point out, there's open source systems that have the same capabilities now. So why are we trying to regulate these models when our advantage is that we have NVIDIA, we have OpenAI, we have Google, we have Anthropic, we have these great companies that can be on the frontier. And OpenAI has a new model that is rumored to be good that they can't release because they're in the government review. I just don't see how it makes sense to come in as like America is the highly regulated kind of region and China's the open market. That's not going to end well. We know how that ends, and it's not good. So we need to let our frontier models keep going. If we make the regulatory process to release a model 30 days, 60 days, a lot of bureaucracy, all they're going to do is release less often. Right? They're not going to release that often because it's going to be a hassle. And that's not good. We need incremental releases versus this step change function where like all this new stuff pops up. That's not going to make it safer. So I don't know. I understand people are scared of it, but I don't think putting it in a bottle when China's running full speed is gonna work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, no. This is really, really terrifying territory, right? I mean, America has never had to be in a situation like this, right? we've always benefited from openness when it comes to technology. And this is kind of the antithesis of who we are and what we do. China runs a completely closed internet, right? And it works for them, but they have a completely different operating system than we do in America, right? And this would be one of those things that I think would really fracture what entrepreneurs, what creators, what technologists, what innovators, what we understand it to be able to do the kind of work we do in this country, right? And at the very same time, we overplayed our hand with these frontier model companies, right? Like too much future value invested in them. Now it's really kind of locked into two companies. And so, you could arguably walk those two back. OpenAI has already said that they're rethinking the IPO, and that may be because they recognize that the business model needs to be rethought. I think Anthropic is seemingly taking a different tack, where it seems like they're going to start lobbying with the government that something does need to be done about these open source models, because it is very dangerous. But I think we're approaching this moment where it's still early enough in this whole process where maybe we got to think, do we block this off for a couple of companies that have, kind of cornered the frontier model opportunity? Or do we allow those companies to have to fight it out and prevail with value above and beyond the model itself, right? So harness, services, other things like that, and just allow the model to become more of the commodity that I think in reality, if you stripped all regulation away, it actually is, right? If I can go on Hugging Face and I can grab 3 other models that are just as competitive as anything OpenAI or Anthropic wants to sell me, then it's a commodity, right? And if the only thing that's going to keep those companies in place is regulatory capture, that's a tough place. That's a tough place for the country to be.
The U.S. does not have to regulate like this. We should let the free market work. I mean, yes, there's been a lot of capital put into Anthropic and OpenAI, and those were accredited investors that decided to put their capital at risk, and they might make a lot of money, they might lose money. That's the free market. And there's been lots of examples where, like, take the internet, the build of the internet destroyed value for several years, but then it enabled Netflix and a bunch of other things to really prosper 5 years later. We can't know what's going to happen 5-10 years from now, except to say that the free economy kind of ethos, or the way we think about it in the US, where there are rules that the government sort of make sure you follow, intellectual property, for instance, or I don't know, certain rules are enforced, but it's not really around who can compete and who can use what models. That does not end well. And I don't think that it's going to be possible for us to shut this down. And I mean, I'm going to use open source models. I don't think Americans are going to take that easily, where like you just say you can't use these open source models. It's going to be really difficult.
Yeah, agree. And to that point, the continued integration of these frontier model companies and the government. Financial Times had the exclusive. OpenAI proposes handing Trump administration a 5% stake. Not unprecedented. We've already seen the Trump administration take a large stake in Intel. And that has actually turned out to be a pretty good investment, both for Intel and for the United States. So this makes sense. And we know that Sam is very strategic in terms of who he needs to partner with at any point in time. And I think if he's making this proposition, I think he has determined that it's not viable to continue to operate independent of the government, right? And that these things are going to become national concerns that are going to have regulatory oversight above and beyond most companies that we can ever think of. He's just getting out in front of it. And this is where I think Sam is great. This is where I think Sam is really, really smart in these types of situations. You know, the way that he navigated the Pentagon situation. I think he's less good in terms of how he works with other big tech players. I think he could be more thoughtful and more smart there. But these types of positioning moves he does a good job with, and I would actually put him ahead of Dario in this particular category, by being the first company to propose giving the United States a stake in OpenAI.
Yes, Sam is really good at deal making. There's no question that's his superpower, and he's really good at that. And he will be able to make some deal with the Trump administration, I'm sure. And I don't think I care. But like, what I care about is that the Trump administration doesn't lock it in where like we can only use OpenAI models or OpenAI and Anthropic models.
Yep.
That is the goal that Sam's trying to finagle and deal his way around into. And he is brilliant in that, but I hope he fails in that. I want there to be a open market with lots of things.
Yeah. Look, I don't think that is the way that the Trump administration thinks. I think they think any deal that advances their leverage for their agenda is a deal that they will consider. And I think that is the brilliance of Sam proposing this up front. It's so diametrically opposed to the stance that Dario has taken in particular, with the administration. We are in a window where this is no longer going to simply be a free market competition. The government will have a say, right? That's clear. After Fable was pulled back, now we know for sure the government will have a say. And so given that that's the reality, this is a pretty smart play from Sam.
Yeah, and it plays with, when we talked about it last week, the socialism, communism,
Mm-hmm.
like the have-nots want a seat at the table, and they see these 100 people turning into billionaires, a couple trillionaires for AI. What am I getting? And this is much better than Bernie Sanders' proposal of taking half. And so he's also getting out in front of that kind of movement a little bit too. He's in California. He probably lives it much more than you and I do. The wealth tax is going to be on the ballot this year, which is hard to imagine it not passing. And so it's just the whole landscape is shifting. And if Sam is anything, he's good about reading the zeitgeist and getting his company positioned.
Totally agree. So, man, a wild and crazy week, specifically in the world of AI, but I think also policy heat really ramping up in the direction of hospitals. We talked, Vic, about what seemed to be a 1-year time window that it took to turn around the scenario for payers in terms of them getting their act together, getting their MLR back, doing what was necessary to get them into a position where they were more aligned with the MAHA HHS regime. But the hospitals do not show any such alignment that I can see. And continue to have really, really strong headwinds heading in their direction. And so let's see how this all plays out. But the table is being set. The table is being set, and I think the changes we're seeing are pretty durable. Consolidation happening in the VC space, jobs being highly concentrated in healthcare, AI becoming a government concern, pharma being really one of the most impressive parts of the healthcare industry today, with a potential to be a sledgehammer to the other side of profitability for many providers by simply curing some of the highest margin disease states. Cure them, right? And so it does feel like we sort of see where the table is set for at least the coming years of where this industry is headed, and what type of innovation we got to place bets in.
I agree. I think that's right. And it's much harder. I think it's harder at a health system to get consensus around a new strategy and take a pretty significant move 40% different direction. It's easier at United Healthcare or a payer. They have more central decision making accumulated. I think the health systems are more disparate, and it's more of we need to get these 30 leaders to all come to consensus before we can make a decision.
Agree.
Which is what I love about health systems. It gets to great patient care, but it's hard to make like a significant change.
Yeah, agree. All right, man. Are you in the office next week?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're in the studio then together. So I'm looking forward to it, and I will see.
Have a good 4th.
Same to you.
Happy 4th. This will be published on the 4th. So happy 250th to the country.
Yeah, happy 250th to the United States of America, and happy 4th. Everybody be safe. I will be at the big 4th of July celebration in Nashville. It's going to be broadcast on ABC. I don't know if you knew that, but
no, I didn't know that.
Yeah. In my capacity as chair of the CVC, I'm going to be running around there with my son and his girlfriend. No, I will not be on TV, but I will be enjoying. I'll be enjoying an incredible party in downtown Nashville, and then the one of a kind fireworks show that we do. So looking forward to it.
The only thing I know I won't be is downtown Nashville.
I'll take video for you, man.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Take care.